Hobbit is without doubt the single most extraordinary experience of 40 years in this business. The role I have in The Hobbit is not a large one. It is a core cast member. The story is of the Hobbit with the help of the wizard Gandalf and 13 dwarves going to reclaim their right, if you like, certainly their treasure, their heritage, all these things. So this is what the dwarves were doing. They were helping. They weren't doing it purely from altruistic standpoints or for altruistic reasons. There's money to be made. They are warriors when they need to be, and although I'm almost 10 years older than the next person in terms of the acting company of the dwarves, none of us was going to stand back from a fight. We were right in there. If there was a battle to be had, then, yep, we'd get it sorted. An extraordinary experience. The sheer size of it is extraordinary. The storytelling is wonderful. I think the characterizations that we've seen, certainly that have come out in the first film, will build in the second and third films. I think the casting has been absolutely fantastic. I mean, one couldn't have anybody other than Sir Ian McKellen to play Gandalf. Working with him was extraordinary and fantastic. Martin Freeman could not have been bettered in terms of casting. Wonderful casting. When you add somebody like Andy Serkis to the mix, you've got a magical formula. I was sat one day at lunch and Ian McKellen was on one side of me and Billy Connolly was on the other side of me. And I kind of had to pinch myself that this was actually me in the middle of my own life between these guys. And the conversation came around to costumes and I said to Billy, "Oh, have you tried on your suit of armour yet?" And he said, I have." I said, "They're heavy, aren't they?" He said, "Heavy." He said, "I can't move in it." He said, "It's like wearing a Volkswagen." I didn't play one character. My first appearance was almost a walk-on part as a probation officer, and I think in the cast list it said probation officer. So there we are. But I did play a couple of other roles, one of whom was a killer who actually shot one of the core cast members and obviously was then arrested. Later I played a detective and then a fourth role as a lawyer. It was incredibly popular, and I can remember at one time waiting to cross the road near a bus stop, and a bus pulled up and it was full of children, and I waited and it pulled off and I crossed the road, and blow me down, the bus came around back to where I was because all the school kids recognised the character I'd played as being the killer on Close to Home, and they all wanted autographs, a whole busload of them, just near Courtney Place in Wellington. What excites me about directing it, primarily, is working with actors who know what they're doing. An awful lot of young people go through Shortland Street as actors, and some of them click into it brilliantly, and that excites me, to find young people who are talented, who've got intelligence, and who know how to tell a story. And if you go in and say to them, "Okay, well, you're giving me X, and actually I want the reverse of that, I want Y," and they go, "Okay, yes, I can see why you're asking for that, John, here it is," and they have the ability to spin on that coin and give me something that's diametrically opposed to what they thought. It's a very exciting process. Yes, one would always like more time, and I think you would find that the DOP, the technical producer, would love to have more time to light things better, that kind of thing. But there are always opportunities for production people, for crew, for actors, for directors to advance their skills on that program. So there are challenges, mostly in terms of time. Every now and then one comes across a crew person or a cast member who isn't quite on top of what they're doing, given the pace of the thing, and that can be challenging, trying to get a performance out of somebody who may not be quite as accomplished as the next person. Working with Paul Gittins was fantastic because he's got a very good brain. He's a very sharp guy, and he had, although it was him doing it, created a kind of character who was a little bit bookish, who liked antique shops, you know, and would find things in books and in those antique shops, in art galleries, things like that, that would link into the stories that we were telling. Every single one of them was real. Every single one of them had some poignancy about it, and to be able to draw that out of people in terms of performance and to be able to tell those stories in a meaningful way was, again, really exciting. I learnt so much about the very complex society that Māori had before Pākehā arrived, the incredible history that they had, the depth of culture, all of these things were being expressed through that program. So for me as a Pākehā to move into that program making position as a director, in which, I should point out, a number of Māori who were in the industry were using this production to gain a further step up the ladder, if you like. So that my first assistant director, Marfi Torrance, was able to work with me as a first AD on a couple of programs, and then she moved into a directing role. So that was wonderful as well. We had a scriptwriter who wrote most of it. In the course of furthering research, just before we went out to shoot, there were certain things that we needed to change. Also, as a kind of documentary process, any director, producer of documentaries will tell you that once you actually start the process and you start talking to people, that information will come out that you may not have had, or that is different from what the research has indicated. So you then have to work out, well, was the research wrong? Is what this guy telling us, is that wrong? Has he got it wrong? Is he lying to us, perhaps? That wasn't the case in this film process, but it did mean that we had to revisit certain bits of the script. So by the time it went to air, I would say that I was probably responsible for a good 35 to 45% of the script that actually went to air.